In this video I will show you the invisible bind off. So what I will do here is, if I was joining around, which I'm not because this is a spiral, I would join my net stitch and pull through. But instead of doing that, because I have been joining it in a spiral all the way around this round, I don't have anywhere to join on my rounds. If I was working and then joining and then increasing one turning chain every round, I would have somewhere where I would need to join my circle. But this is an invisible, this is a spiral round, so I want to do an invisible bind off for this. So what I will do is, instead of joining, like I said, joining through and binding off that way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull, I've cut my work, I'm going to pull my thread all the way through, and I want to take my embroidery needle and thread my yarn with quite a big eyed needle because it's thicker, chunky wool, and then instead of joining to the first next stitch, I'm going to skip this stitch and I'm going to join to the next stitch. So I'm going to go into the front of this stitch. So as you see, I'm going to hide that to the back where you can see, I'm completely missing this first stitch and I'm going into the front of this next stitch here. So I'm going to go all the way through and pull it through, so that the stitch that I have just made sits on top of the front of the V, the stitch underneath. And then what I'm going to do is pull that wool forward, and I am going to go back to this stitch here that it originated from, and I'm going to go through that back loop so that the whole stitch that I have made, front and back, sits entirely over the stitch that I skipped, therefore making it an invisible bind off. So I'm going to go through the back stitch and through the one underneath, just so that it tucks away nice and neatly through there like this. And as you can see, the top of my stitch sits over that stitch. Pull it quite taut. So this stitch, instead of creating a joining stitch, just sits over the stitch below, creating an invisible bind off. And then I would just weave through a couple of stitches underneath just to hide my yarn. Weave my ends in, and then I have an invisible bind off. I hope that helps.